Greetings, math students. Today we will be learning about ratios. Today's learning objective is students will express ratios and use ratios to compare categorical data by writing them in three different formats. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities. Ratios can be written three different ways. For example, let's say we have 3 roses and 7 daisies. If we would like to compare the number of roses to daisies, we can express this three different ways. When writing a ratio, you always compare the first item, which would be the roses, to the second item, which is the daisies. We can write the ratio using word form by saying 3 to 7. We can write the ratio using a colon, 3:7, or we can write the ratio as a fraction. We most commonly see ratios written as fractions. We can also compare an item to a whole. For example, if we'd like to compare the number of roses to the total number of flowers. In this case, we would add together the roses plus the daisies, which equals 10 flowers. When writing a ratio comparing a number to a whole, we typically use the words out of in place of the word to. Both are acceptable, but out of is more accurate when comparing to a whole. To write the ratio, we would say 3 out of 10 are roses, or write 3:10 or 3 over 10 as a fraction. Let's try some examples. In our first example, we will write a ratio that compares the number of suns to the number of moons. Then we'll explain its meaning. When writing a ratio, you are always comparing the first item to the second item. In this statement, we have the number of suns to moons. You can write a little word ratio if you want to help you remember the proper order. Then we will count up the number of suns and the number of moons. There are 4 suns and 7 moons, so we can write the ratio three different ways. 4 to 7, 4:7, or 4 over 7. The meaning of our ratio is there are 4 suns to every 7 moons. In this example, we'll write a ratio that compares the number of Garys to the number of SpongeBobs, then explain its meaning. In this case, we're comparing the number of Garys to the number of SpongeBobs. Therefore, when we count up the number of Garys, we find that there are 8 and there are 2 SpongeBobs. We'll write our ratio as 8 to 2, 8:2, or 8 over 2. When we have a ratio that is written in fraction form that is improper, it is one place in math where it's very proper to be improper. If we would turn this into the number 4, we would no longer have our comparison. We would not know the number of Garys and the number of SpongeBobs. Therefore, when we are writing ratios, we will leave improper fractions as is. There's no need to simplify and no need to convert this into a mixed number or a whole number. The meaning of our ratio is there are 8 Garys to every 2 SpongeBobs. Last month, Ed ate 9 apples, 5 bananas, 4 pears, and 7 oranges. Find the ratio of apples to the total number of fruit. Then explain its meaning. Again, we can write a word ratio to help guide us, and we are looking for the number of apples compared to the total number of pieces of fruit that Ed ate last month. When we find the total, we do include the apples because they are part of the fruit that Ed ate last month. To find the total, we would add 9 plus 5 plus 4 plus 7, which equals 25. Now that we know there are 25 pieces of fruit, we can write the ratio. The number of apples is 9, and the total pieces of fruit is 25. When you're comparing to a total, you quite often use out of instead of the word to. We can also write this using a colon and in fraction form. Our ratio tells us that 9 out of the 25 pieces of fruit at 8 were apples. Let's write the ratio of dogs sold to birds sold, then explain its meaning. Our word ratio would be dogs to birds because we are comparing the first item to the second. We can see from the table that 14 dogs were sold and 10 birds were sold. We would write our ratio as 14 to 10, 14:10, or 14/10. And as I mentioned before, there is no need to turn this into a mixed number or to simplify the fraction when we are working with ratios. Our ratio tells us there are 14 dogs sold to every 10 birds sold. In our final problem, the pet store sold these animals in 1 week. Write the ratio of cats to total pets sold, then explain its meaning. First, we could start with our word ratio, and we want the number of cats to the total number of pets. Next, we need to find the total number of pets. We do include the cats in that total because they are part of the pets that were sold. Now that we know there are 32 pets in total, we can compare the cats to the total number of pets. We would write the ratio as 8 out of 32, or 8 to 32 would also be acceptable, 8:32, and 8/32. And again, there's no need to simplify. So our ratio tells us 8 out of 32 pets sold were cats. This concludes our lesson on ratios.